Hey, all Tommy Post here. Just thought I'd take a couple minutes to do a real review, unbiased of course, on the Truglo Range Rover Pro single pin sight. I touched on it a little bit in my last video, but as you probably noticed in that video, I was a little swollen. I got into some poison ivy, and frankly, I don't think I was thinking that clearly when I said what I said. So anyhow, I want to take a quick minute to just kind of go over it, the features of it, and give you my opinion on it. Now, I have two bows. I have a practice bow. I have a hunting bow. I'm not one of those bow snobs that says, okay, if I shoot a PSC, that's the only good bow out there. So you can see right behind me, I've got several different bows in the house. My wife shoots a diamond made by Bowtech. My little boy also shoots a diamond. And my little girl shoots a bear. So I think there's actually good bows from all the manufacturers out there. It just depends on what it is they're offering and what your needs are. So that's pretty much the collection we have in this house. Both of my bows are PSEs. Show you this one first. This is PSE Bow Madness 30 X-Jet. Okay. I also touched on this at one time, because I was under the impression that it was a standard Bow Madness 30. It's not. It's different. I don't have all the specs of it memorized, so I can't sit here and tell you the brace height and every little feature of it. But what I can tell you about this bow, for all of those of you that don't know what an X-Jet is, it's actually a really good bow. It's single cam bow, which makes it real simple. Cam timing is not really an issue with this thing. It's got a longer axle to axle than the Bow Madness 30 has. This one is 31 1/4, I believe. Bow Madness 30 is 29 3/4, so it's a little bit longer, a little more forgiving. Anyhow, I'll touch on that later. This video is about the Truglo sight. But my second bow that I have, also a PSE, is right behind me here. I don't know if you can see it in the video, but it's a brute force. It's got the hybrid cams. It's real smooth draw as well. That's just a 60-pound bow though, and that one just has a regular 5-pin sight on it. Also a Truglo. But anyhow, getting down to it, let's talk about this Range Rover Pro. It is really cool. The principle of it is that you can dial precisely whatever distance you want to shoot. So you bring out your rangefinder, you take a look, and you see that it's 48 yards or 32 yards. You can actually dial it pretty precisely to the elevation you need to make the shot. What it is, get rid of that real quick. It's got a glass lens inside of it, and it's much like a reticle inside of a rifle. Anybody who's got an AR or something like that, they've seen these before. This is basically just, it's got a little tiny dot in the center, it's got a crosshair, and it's a little green dot. And that little guy has different powers, of brightness. So if you're sitting inside the blind, you dial it down so that you don't dilate your own pupil because it's so bright. But anyhow, teach their own. However you like it. But there's different powers of strength for that little light inside. Now the way this thing works is when you get it, there's a little tape that sticks on right here. Now that little tape has different lines on it for different distances. And you start with a blank one, or you start with the test one that comes on it. And what you do is you go through the same process you always do, dialing in your bow at 20 yards. So you go measure it out, get an exact 20 yards, and you shoot until you get it to be perfect, okay? But you leave the little pointer always down on 20, but you move this around like a regular sight, up, down, side, till you get it pinpointed to match your 20 yards. Then you start working your way back. Come on down to 30 yards, shoot, make sure you're still good, and start dialing this until that little pin, it basically moves up and down. So you can see the further I dial, 40, 50, 60 yards on up, the sight goes down, basically causing you to lift it and gain more elevation. bring it back to 20, it lifts the sight up, bringing your elevation down. So you start dialing your way back 30 yards, you find the sweet spot for 30, you're banging away at 30. Measure out further, go out 40 yards, turn it a little more until you find the sweet spot for 40. Make your way all the way back to 60 yards. Once you get to 60, make a little mark on that tape. And shoot a bunch at 60. Make sure you're really happy with it, because once you make your choice, you're going to stick a tape on there that's going to indicate 20 yards and 60 yards that matches where you set this thing. When you get it, you get a bunch of little tapes that they all seem to have a different graduation on them. Some are real close together, some are far apart, but they're evenly spaced, so you have to find the right tape that's going to line up perfectly with the 20, lined up perfectly with the 60 that you set. So once you get that, it'll spread them out, and then you can just dial in between, and it works. Very accurate. So I'm really happy with it, but this is an unbiased review. So I got some complaints. It's noisy. It's got pluses and minuses. It is noisy. It's got a lot of bracketry, and it's got pivot points on it, and it's a noisy sight. Deer lots of times will duck the shot if they can hear you. Where I live, it's called ducking the shot. Maybe they call it something else somewhere else, but basically, the deer's already alert. He knows you're there, and when he hears the crack of that bow, there is that split second between the time the arrow leaves and the time it punches a hole in him. So when he hears that, he crouches just before he jumps and runs. So the quieter the bow, the better, in my opinion. That's complaint number one. Complaint, which is less of an issue if you're inside of a ground blind, because inside of a ground blind you have a small opening that you're shooting through, hopefully a small opening, and you've got walls too, so a lot of that sound gets muffled inside and it's less important. But if you're free range shooting, they'll hear it. Complaint number two, sometimes when you see that buck come out, or you see that doe come out, or whatever it is, or sometimes even just practicing, you lift it up and you draw, and then you realize, oh crap, I forgot to turn it on. And you can't see anything, because that crosshair is just black. So it doesn't collect light on its own without using this. So really, you forgot to turn it on, so you stop, you have to let down, you have to go ahead and dial it to the brightness that you want, and then commence with your shot. That's a lot of time. And frankly, if you've got something trophy quality in front of you, he's just going to wander off. You already missed it. And lastly, dialing your yardage. You know, when you throw up your rangefinder and you go, oh wow, he's out there at 38 yards. And you're sitting there trying to dial that thing, and you're trying to see that tape while you're inside of a dark ground blind just as the sun's breaking. It's hard to do. I mean, it really is a lot to manage to use this thing hunting. I think you already figured out this is not my hunting bow. This bow, as much as I love it, has become my target bow. I think the strengths of this particular sight is going to be in competition or 3D shooting, where none of those things are a factor. This thing is pinpoint accurate. If you get that 20 and 60 very accurate, it's going to hit every time. So I'd say that is the best strength of this particular sight, in my opinion. You may have a different one. That is mine. So now that all is said and done, let's set this aside. This is my hunting bow. Oddly, like I said, it's 60 pounds. That bow's a 70. You don't need 70 pounds. It's not a macho thing. You're not more of a man because you draw 70 or 80 pounds. If it's appropriate to the game you're hunting, the least amount of poundage that you can use and be effective, ethically kill, is just the most comfortable to use. It makes the most sense. 60-pound bow. I've heard it all before. Oh man, I shoot a 70. Well, go ahead and shoot your 70. You know what I can do? I can take this bow, hybrid cams, 80% let off, 60 pounds. I can sit there, train down that deer, and not even, I don't have to let down. I don't have to anything. I can take the shot exactly when I want. I don't get fatigued. I don't start to shake, unless it's buck fever. And quiet is the name of the game. Take a look at this. 5-pin sight. Nothing special about it, but it's whisper quiet. It's every bit as accurate. I wouldn't say that you could dial it to an exact yard, but when you got a bow that shoots pretty flat, pretty straight, it's not too much of a chore to space your target in between the 2 pins. So this is what I would choose to hunt with. Quiet, lower poundage, simple, can get rained on. You don't get fog inside of the little glass thing. Sometimes simple is better. Well, that's it. Unbiased. If y'all have any questions, just leave them in the comment section. That being said, happy shooting.